Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session on health. I hope you've had a good day yesterday and recovered so well that you're so anxious to get to this second session on health. I'm convening this session with my colleagues Leden Broeder, Sabine Wildevuur, and Martijn de Groot, who will present themselves shortly. I'll show some slides first to give you an idea of what the session is all about. And then we'll have an interactive Mentimeter session with a short wrap-up. So I suppose that everybody is getting to the session slowly but steadily, but because we have only 1.5 hours, I suppose we get started. So I'll start sharing my screen. All right, here we are. This is our agenda. We're in the introduction now. We will have an interactive questionnaire using Mentimeter and chat, and we'll have a wrap-up. The background to this workshop is that health, according to in our views, is a relatively less researched domain within citizen science. And at the same time, there's a great diversity of perspective and approaches. Some of them we have been able to hear about them yesterday in the other health session. There's citizen science targeted at public health in the areas of epidemiology, insect monitoring for health, for example, or participatory health assessments. There's a quantified self, personal science, patient movements and nodes. You have the development of e-health technologies and a lot more of different approaches. We think that there's lots of complementarity in these approaches, and at the same time that citizen science for health has some specificities that need to be addressed that make it different, the application of citizen science in the health domain from other domains. And that there's a need to and a desire for international collaboration in this domain. These are our assumptions for delivering this workshop, and we're happy to check this out with you. So I'll give now the floor to my co-presenters, co-conveners. They're from different angles of the citizen science for health perspective, so that you can get a sense of where we are. And they'll have a 1 to 2 minute short introduction about their background and focus. Sabine, could you please start?
Thank you, Gaston, for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. Very happy that you're joining this workshop. My name is Sabine Wildevuur from Design Lab at University Twente, and we are involved in several citizen science projects, not only on health, but also other issues. But we are also part of a regional iconic project called TopFit Citizen Lab that we will present tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And I think what I heard yesterday as well is this, what most people call interdisciplinary way of working. I would rather call it transdisciplinary way of working, which is really needed for citizen science for health, and also the user-centered design that the keynote speaker yesterday talked about is of great importance. And I would like to leave it there.
Thank you, Sabine. Leah, could you take it on?
Thank you, Gaston. Hi, everybody. Great to see you here all. I work in another domain. I work in public and community health. The work that my colleagues and I at the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment do is both similar and both different from conventional citizen science, which focuses very often on sustainability and environmental issues. Yes, we look in public health very much on the environment as a health asset, and we look also at how citizens use these health assets or try to change it to improve their health. But it's also different what we do, because we have a very high level of participation. For example, citizens help us to develop indicators, or they do analysis work, which is not very common. in many projects. And also what is special about our work is that we work mainly with underprivileged communities, whereas a lot of citizen science is taken on by people who are more highly educated. So slightly different, slightly similar, and I look forward to the discussion in this session. Thank you, Gaston.
Well, thank you a lot, Leah. Martijn, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gaston, and a warm welcome to everybody in this workshop. My name is Martijn de Groot. I'm director of Reshape Center, which is an innovation department at the Radboud University Medical Center. I've been involved with the Quantified Self community for almost a decade and was co-founding director of Quantified Self Institute for 5 years, and I'm a close collaborator with Gary Wolf, with whom recently we published a paper on personal science, which we partly address today during this workshop. I'm looking forward to our workshop today.
Okay, Martijn. Now, some words about myself. I have a background in agroecology and sociology, so a completely different area of work in which I've worked for about 25 years in issues as sustainable agricultural and rural development. Always interested in the clash between so-called lay knowledge and professional knowledge, but got into the domain of health when I got cancer myself. And this is about 8 years ago, and together with some other issues I have, medical issues, it showed me that that my own knowledge about my own body and my own healing capacities and what I could do to strengthen my health can't be taken up into the medical system. And I'm very much annoyed by that. And I noticed that there's many other of my colleague patients having the same issues, and that has led me to explore this issue further and further. So that's why I'm now completely working in the health domain. I'm currently involved in setting up a national patient network on citizen science to health, including over 15 communities of patient groups that are engaged in what we call in Dutch self-research, zelfonderzoek, including about 10,000 people. And I've been engaged as a principal investigator together with a PI from an academic center in a large research project called My Own Research, about which we'll have a short conversation tomorrow in the poster session P15 by the end of tomorrow evening. So far about me. Then I'll give the floor very briefly to Bastian Greshake, who is joining us as an invited guest. As you possibly may know, in this session we can have only 7 speakers, so we can't have a real debate as we would like to. But we have more or less handpicked some of the other possibly interested people in the health domain to give us some reflections and keep us sharp. So Bastian, could you please say a little bit, as if it were only for people to hear your voice?
Of course. So, hey everyone, I'm Bastian. I'm a research fellow at the Center for Research and Interdisciplinarity in Paris, where my lab is researching how we can apply the principles of common space peer production in citizen science. So think about how can we transfer the knowledge about Wikipedia, how it works, about open source, to running citizen science projects, in particularly about citizen science projects that use personal data and of course health-related data. I'm also the director of research for a foundation called Open Humans, which helps people aggregate their data and use it for personal insight and collect the citizen science projects. And we are giving a talk later today in the data issues session. And I'll keep it at that for now.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bastian. All right, just another few words for introduction. The goal of this workshop. We would like to explore dimensions and challenges of citizen science for health and how citizen science for health is distinct from other areas than health. That's the first one. The second one, we would like to gradually work towards a theoretical framework based on the active input of you as participants using the online polls that we will shortly go into. And we will elaborate the output of this workshop. We will try to, we aim to develop a green paper to be presented to ECSA. we have another Google document open in which we will ask you to fill out the projects that you know of in the area of health, so that we can get a good overview. We will introduce that over the course of the Mentimeter session, and we will see if there's interest enough to create a special interest group on health within ECSA. Okay, if you're interested in this, in any kind of follow-up of this workshop, please send an email to the email address below on the screen, with only in the subject line "Citizen Science for Health follow-up." That will do, and then we'll keep you posted. All right. Then, as a short,
Gaston,
yes, go ahead.
just short interruption. So please share any comments in your chat. I will be coordinating all the comments, and maybe so now and then interrupt Gaston like I just did, and share any of the comments that you have as a participant if needed.
Great. Thanks for interrupting me, Martijn. Very well. Thank you. Okay. Now, a little bit of a first tryout to map more or less the diversity. This is a figure which will come back in the Mentimeter session, and this is one of the things that we would like you to reflect on if we are more or less in the right direction. We have portrayed here two axes. The first axe is from what we call the agency axe. It's the actor who's driving citizen science for health. On the left hand is the citizen or the patient who's driving it. On the right hand, there's the researcher. The vertical X is the purpose X. On the bottom, it's about serving individual purposes, and on the top, it's serving generic purposes. And if you cross these lines, you can at least start to map part of the diversity of citizen science for health projects. So you could imagine that projects that have to deal with public health as serving generic purposes is often located in the upper right quadrant, often organized by researchers and serving a clearly public goal, but also lots of research that are initiated by researchers that involve heavily patients or citizens and that try to achieve knowledge that is generalizable for a larger group of people is located in the upper right quadrant. Or the folded approaches, engaging people in games to sort out protein structures is located in this upper right hand quadrant. On the contrary, on the left, the lower left quadrant, you could locate there a variety of quantified self projects, or the small investigations, informal investigations that patients undertake to help themselves when they are recovering from a disease. Their lifestyle experiments, the notes they write, the books they write about their disease. Mostly their own investigations serve only their individual purpose, and to a lesser extent they have value for the wider public. Just to get you an idea of where we may locate some of the projects. Of course, this graph can be discussed more at length, but we'll ask you some questions about it. And but I'm happy to introduce it to you now, so that we can, when it shows up in the Mentimeter, you know what we're talking about. And I'll go to the next slide. So this is then the questionnaire that we would like to work on with you. There's 4 different areas that we would like to cover. The first is a quick dive into who we are with today. Also a bit testing the Mentimeter mechanism. Then the larger part, it's a kind of a needs assessment for citizen science for health. Then section C on collaboration interests among those interested in citizen science for health. And then we have a short evaluation of this questionnaire and session. Again, I call your attention to the Google Docs document, which is open, in which you can list voluntarily the project that you deem relevant to the citizen science for health domain. And we will have a first presentation of the results tomorrow in the ePoster session P15.3 at 5:45 in the afternoon. Before I dive into... Yes, go ahead, Martijn.
I have, I think, an excellent remark based on the framework from Jacko, it was, I think. Jacko, wondering about how about family and other caregivers, in Dutch we say mantelzorgers, related to the framework. I think that's a nice one maybe to respond to before we continue.
Well, and then the question is then where to locate them.
Where to locate them in the framework,
yes.
Just to understand the framework.
Yes, I would say these are more on the left-hand side of the quadrant. It's more in the area of patient or citizen-driven initiatives. If they are at the core of the initiative, I would locate them there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I hope it answered the question. Are there any more issues that come up already in the chat that need some response?
So Sam is wondering...
Yeah, maybe Gaston. There are also, it's not only about the caregivers that people are asking for, but also where to include clinicians or policymakers. And clinicians can be positioned on the X, I suppose, but where would we
I would position them on the right-hand side as professional experts. That's the essence. It's professional knowledge. Mostly they are researchers, but policymakers could also be. I would locate them there. Okay. Any other remarks?
Let's continue.
All right. Okay. Oh, then this is the wrap up for the last section, but we will go there later. Now, first, a few remarks. Let me just stop sharing this screen, and I'll share the screen with the Mentimeter. And then I'll go there. Okay, now I'm showing the Mentimeter screen. I hope it is visible for everybody. Can somebody confirm? Of my colleagues?
I don't see it.
You don't see it? You see my face?
Your face, but not the Mentimeter.
Okay, then I'll have to share my screen in a different... Just a sec. Okay. Is this better?
No. Yes, now it starts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So now I have the Mentimeter working. Just a short notes that are helpful for answering the Mentimeter questions. You will notice this is the code for the Mentimeter. Up there, go to menti.com and use 4420523, and then you will be directed to the Mentimeter questions. There's a pretty amount of questions, about 35, and not all of them are complicated, so we can go through them pretty quickly. But we will try to do some reflection on the questions while we go over them, but it will be a bit limited, so apologies for that, but we'll try to unpack all the answers hopefully yes tomorrow in the evaluation session, and if not over the course of the next days, and of course in an exchange that we can have later on. Sometimes there's a question that ends with a possibility to answer other, and then you will either see an invitation to add your other comments in a next question that will come up later, or to share your comments in the chat. And if you are requested to add your comments in the chat, please precede your comment with the number of the question to which it relates to. I hope you still can all follow. So you can either add your comments in a next question slide, which will be kind of an open-ended question, or in the chat. All right.
Gaston, the voting is not yet open, so people don't see, this question is not open for voting, is what people see on their screen. So you need to open it.
All right. And now, maybe if people refresh your apps.
Yeah, it works now.
Okay, just fill in. What country do you work in?
Well, that's already great to see everybody popping up from all around the world.
Also great to see Australia be part. Somebody from Australia, or probably even two, looking at the size of the word. Very nice.
We understood there's a delay of about 25 seconds, so between us showing the questions and you being able to answer. But I guess we're getting now more or less to the end of the voting period. So just a few seconds more and then we'll go to the next question. All right, thanks a lot. What domain of do you work in the health domain? Yes, I do, and I have a presentation poster at this conference. Yes, I do, but I'm not presenting my work at this conference. No, I don't, but I'm curious to know what's happening in this domain.
So, and while people are answering this question, there is one question on the chat asking if any of the participants can also add citizen science projects outside from Europe. And of course, please feel free to add them to the list. It only helps us to get a better image, a better picture of what's going on worldwide.
All right. A few seconds more.
I'm really glad to see so many people who are not working in the health domain attending this session, because we really need more people from citizen science popping into health. So very welcome. And we hope the session is going to be so much fun that you want to stay with us forever.
All right, thanks a lot. I'm closing this question and go to the next. Your perspective. With what role do you identify most? You're either a researcher, and you can label yourself as if you're a policymaker, please go ahead, a citizen or a patient, or including also family and caregivers. Maybe you're both professional and non-professional, or you maybe are different.
Also, these questions are just a warming up for the core of our session today. So I guess it's also a way to get familiar with the Mentimeter system.
But it's already great to see the different background of the people. But it seems like the researchers are going to be the largest group.
Yeah, I'm also happy to see there's some people who cover both roles. But we definitely have less people from the citizen or patient perspective. Okay, I'm closing this question and go to the next. Do you have an idea how many professionals work in any type of citizen science for health projects in your country? Either you don't have a clue or any number between 1 and over 100.
Well, this already clearly shows the importance of having this moment of a thermometer and get a better picture of what's going on. Most people don't really have a clue, I guess.
And I think also following the chat that the role of the professionals, we have different professionals as public engagement managers, as somebody said, or librarian, or where do you position this kind of, I mean, they're all professionals, but where do you position yourself then? When are you a professional or not? But
Okay, I'm closing this question and go to the next. Do you have an idea how many citizens are engaged in or developing any type of citizen science for health project in your country? You don't have a clue, or you have an estimation of any number between 1 and over 50,000.
There's a good remark in the chat from Niels Hyen saying that these category may also include people that do not label themselves as citizen science, such as the PHR or the like. So yeah, that makes it hard to make an estimate, I guess.
PHR, you mean?
I guess
PHR?
the patient health record, I guess.
Okay.
Participatory health research, I assume.
Yes, that makes more sense.
Yes, the categories are somewhat difficult to really define very precisely, but just to get an idea. The point is, I don't see any estimates on my screen emerging. Are you?
No, but there are already 36 people who have answered,
Yes.
so there must be something wrong in the visualization here.
Yes, but
we're sorry.
I assume that something that the Mentimeter in the background will have recorded the answers. I suggest we go to the next question.
We lost the Mentimeter site in screen, Gaston.
You lost. What
no,
do you
it's
see
back
now?
Yeah, it's back now.
No, it's back.
It's back?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Do you see now the section B, needs assessment for citizen science for health?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Next question. Do you think there is a marked difference between citizen science in the health domain as compared to citizen science in other domains? Yes, there is. Yes, there are differences, but not that big. There's no difference, or you don't know.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, in the chat, there are a few remarks about that it's sometimes hard to label a project as being citizen science or not. And I guess we acknowledge that.
Yeah, we acknowledge that. Yes, definitely.
And I think that's why we also have this session. I mean, there has been at the keynote speaker as well. When do you call it citizen science? But I think with this group and also afterwards, that's something to really look into, because we have different methods that we use for citizen science. But what are these methods? And so, yeah, how do you define in a way citizen science for health? So it's a bit too much to dive into this session, but it's a really important one as well.
Okay. The conclusion is at least that there are differences from what the audience judges. And now let's take a more closer look to these differences through the next couple of questions. So if you think there are differences, in what issues do these differences reside? And it's a bit small on the screen, but the first one says that citizens in the health domain are, as co-researchers, can also be research subjects. It's about the quality of the data, which are under more scrutiny than in other domains. There are ethical requirements and consent mechanisms that are of a different nature. The dynamics of stakeholder engagement is more complex. Or maybe you think there's no marked difference between citizen science within and outside the health domain, or you maybe have other observations, and you can fill those out in the next question.
So in Gaston, people can mark 2 or more, or just 2?
I don't recall what we. I think people can fill out more issues.
Yeah, I think you can do as many as you want.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, in the chat, some examples of citizen science projects are being shared.
All right.
For instance, the COVID-19 symptom tracker by King's College being probably suggested here by the participant, one of the biggest health citizen science projects in the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I do see there's at least the issues that we proposed are considered as relevant, and between them the ethical requirements are most prominent. And I'm very curious about the other remarks, which we'll now address in the next question. So if you listed in the previous question other, what would be then the differences? And you can write these in the Mentimeter. It's an open-ended question.
So one of the questions in the chat, and I think it also returns here, is what is the difference between citizen science and participatory action research? Is one of our co-readers able to reflect on that?
I could say something about that, and I also reacted on the chat. I think participatory action research is an excellent example of citizen science for health, especially in the public health field, but also in other health fields or in healthcare. But it's not all the citizen science is participatory action research, whereas I would say participatory action research is always part of the citizen science, the broad spectrum of citizen science approaches.
Yeah, and maybe to add that as well, I mean, we have this discussion at the project which we are running. So when is it citizen science or in healthcare, is most of it already kind of citizen science, because we include patient normally when you are doing health-related research. So we have this discussion, but what we think as well, no, citizen science is different, and we have this participatory methods that we are using within citizen science, but it's broader. And it's also still the discussion, how do you define it? And I see this back in the chat. And one of the approaches we took at University Twente is that we distill the dimensions for citizen science instead of defining it. There's so many definitions already going on. So yeah, and so the discussion is still going on. There's not a real answer. What is the difference then between citizen science, between user-centered design in the field of healthcare, between participatory action research? And I think that's why a workshop like this is of importance as well.
That's true, Sabine. And still, I would like to focus really on what happens in the health domain, going beyond the issues of what is citizen science or not. To me, the essence of what we try to discuss is about the relationship between researchers or professional experts, for that matter, and citizens and patients. That needs to have a level of quality before it could be in any way labeled as citizen science, no matter what type of research you would apply.
Yeah. What you see in the chat, that there is a kind of struggle, like how do we define citizen science for health? Yeah. And how does it differ from more participatory ways of doing research in the healthcare domain?
Mm.
It depends very much, I think, on the position that the citizens have within this research project. And for example, you don't get any health research projects funded unless you have included or engaged some patients or people from the target group. But then very often this is only a matter of having them in a small advisory team or something. Which I would not consider as citizen science, because they don't really have an active role in such a project. Only sometimes more for window dressing, sometimes very serious, but not very active. So especially for the health field, this is very common, and then it makes it even more important to really think about, when do we think we are doing citizen science? When do we think we are just doing a little bit of participation in problem definition, for example? And it's also a spectrum, so the scale differs, and I'm not certain whether we should really be very exact, like, so this is where it stops being citizen science and this is where it starts. But it's important to think about it at least.
Yeah, and also related to this, I think there's like the problem of what is citizen science, in the sense of course, citizens are engaged in health research as research subjects in many, many cases, and does this count as citizen science? So the COVID tracker, which was mentioned, I think, in the chat as well, it's like, there might be a lot of people who provide data, but is the citizen science, or are they just research subjects in a basically traditional study? But it's using an app. Does like using an app on your phone make it citizen science, or is it basically just a different way of running a traditional research study? So there's, I think, also some definition that we need to come up with, which actually somehow has like a boundary to say this clearly does not classify citizen science, at least to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I think this is a good discussion, great. And also looking at the responses, I think we should go to the next question, maybe, Gaston?
Thank you, Martijn, for prompting this. I'll go to the next question. Yep. Now, this is a question about how to map the diversity. We have listed here a number of issues that may help sort out the diversity. And we are asking you to rank them in order of importance. You can choose either between agency and purpose, as introduced in the slide in the introduction, or content, which refers to the domain within the healthcare sector, care, cure, prevention, public health, or whatever you think is appropriate. The impact, referring to education, knowledge, change, empowerment, etc. The research phase, the levels of participation, and others, which you are kindly asked to write in the chat.
Going back to the characteristics of citizen science, Barbara Kieslinger in the chat also shared a link with us from research being done at her organization.
All right, a few seconds more. Well, I see purpose is staying family in the first place. So that seems to be very, very relevant. And then there's a number of issues that more or less are equally important. Okay. I'm going to the next question.
Maybe, Gaston, just to point out one of the remarks in the chat is that Karin van den Riesche says, being a citizen touches on a broader range of relations with domains like technologies, politics, etc. And I guess even defining what is a citizen could be a challenge. What does it? What are the characteristics? Also, somebody's referring to the difference between here and China, for instance, and the involvement of the government. So the issue touches on deeper water.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think also the comment of Alice, who says that the experience of a doctor and a patient will be so different. And I think that's also, of course, something that accounts for the specifically citizen science for health projects compared to other citizen science.
Good point.
All right. Thank you. We'll go to the next slide. This is this one. in your specific citizen science for health project, who is the principal actor driving it? It's a professional or professional researcher, it's a citizen patient or caregiver or a family, or maybe you're not conducting a citizen science for health project, or maybe you have other remarks.
I think Niels Hagen in the chat is a very nice, interesting question, which is what might purposes be except from knowledge production and care improvement or health impacts? And I'm repeating it just because I was wondering the same when I saw the results. I wonder which kind of purposes people were talking about. So if people have feelings that they want to share, please put them in the chat for us to see.
Great.
And I think that will come back in some of the following questions as well.
Yeah. By the way, are people in the chat, when they make remarks referring to the question to which the remark relates? As I can't see the chat right now from my screen, that will be helpful for us to later go through them.
Well, in this case, it's a response to the fact that purpose was the main driver of citizen science. So Niels is reflecting, what purpose except from knowledge production or care improvement or health. And I guess well-being in a broader sense. But this is something we can reflect on as a group.
Yes, definitely. Okay, just a few seconds more. So what we can conclude now that at least among the participants, most projects are being conducted by professional researchers and to a lesser extent by citizens and patients, or driving, I should say. I'll go to the next question, which is I get back to the figure I introduced before relating to the issues that may help map diversity. In one of the previous questions, agency and purpose, they came up as at least important issues to map diversity. We will assume now that they are indeed helpful to differentiate, whether it's true or not, but this is what we now work with. And we will ask you to locate your project according to one of these quadrants, and then we will see where we more or less are located. So I'll show you the next question, and then you'll be able to locate it. Here it goes.
And yes, to answer the question from Alice in the chat, if you don't have a project that you are doing right now about citizen science and health, then don't answer, I would say.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the visualization because I think it's great.
But if you have conducted a project in the past, in the recent past, please go on and fill it out anyway.
Interesting result.
Definitely. I can see we have all extremes being represented, except for the the lower right quadrant, which is indeed a hard quadrant to fill.
Just think of the N of 1 trials and the single subject research design used in medical science. So that type of project should be in the right down quadrant. So I guess the people who joined us today, nobody is actually involved as a clinical N of 1 researcher.
Well, you're correct, but mostly this clinical N of 1 research has also intent to serve generic purposes. I am thinking of Craig Venter, who has plotted himself against lots of things, and but he has done so, which is an N of 1 research, but he has done so for the purpose of driving, well, to generate knowledge that is available for the wider audience and to speed up generic knowledge development.
And also there's the point, even if you manage to do a individual purpose researcher-driven project, what these people described as a citizen science, and be at this conference. So there are maybe people who do this but wouldn't be in the room today.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, I think the picture is pretty clear. Interesting to see that the point of gravity is more in the upper right quadrant, but still it seems to be quite balanced between citizens and researchers, but more up to the generic purposes than serving individual purposes. Food for thought, I would say. Let's go to the next question, which is referring to the rate of success. If you are participating, meaning conducting, participating as a participant, or leading a citizen science for health project, how would you rate its success between non-successful or very successful?
And for the people who are not involved in the project, these are just a couple of questions on people who are involved, and we'll have a more broader scope later on. Let's just, in that case, enjoy and learn from others.
Hang on.
And if you're not sure how to rate it because you're still at the beginning, I would suggest to vote somewhere in the middle.
Or don't vote if you still don't know.
I guess what might be hard in this question is how to define success, right?
Well, that's always difficult. We will have follow-up questions trying to define what are the factors for success, or what are the issues that made it unsuccessful or less successful. I suggest we go on also review on the time. So this is about if your project was not so successful, what are the main reasons for that? And you can write maximum of 3 in this question.
So the question also arrived in the chat, what is successful? But I guess it's just your
defined by yourself, I would say.
And we're more curious about, if not, and if it is, what are the main reasons? That's what we're actually looking for here. I guess ethics, COVID, and funding are shared problems.
All right. I suggest we go on to the next slide, which is about the factors that have promoted your success. I'm very pleased with what I see coming up. This is so valuable.
Yes, and very diverse. It's great.
Yeah.
And while the lockdown has been a major cause of no success, as Antonis stated, the COVID has also created opportunities for some.
Definitely.
I think it's hard to pick up one that really stands out. How is that for my co-conveners? Do you see one striking?
But there's one thing, I see lots of things that relate to teamwork in different ways, engagement, being together, wanting something to make it work. It's being voiced in different ways. Dedication.
Yeah, so this interdisciplinarity is of really importance, but I also see the community engagement. So instead of focusing on only citizens, to include communities.
Okay, just a few seconds more.
Yeah, perhaps also the co-creation of research. Is it a different type of research that we are developing for health or not?
Yes, and in these times also online citizen science projects have better circumstances for success.
I'll go to the next slide, be number 10. So this question, now we have a series of questions that relate to the major conditions that should be developed in order for citizen science for health to prosper. So we will have 5 sets of 3 predefined items that you can ponder about and 1 open-ended question. So if in any of the following slides you think, well, this is not complete, don't panic. There might be another slide in which your issue comes up. Or if not, then you always have the last question, which is an open-ended question in which you can put all the things that you haven't recognized in the next few slides. So here we go. It's about major conditions that should be developed in order for citizen science for health to prosper. So the 3 issues here that are listed relate to either data infrastructure, and that refers to connectivity of different sources of data, the real-world data, clinical data, other types of data, and also refer to issues as data quality, ownership, security, interoperability. The next one is on research methods, including statistics, including upgrading N-of-1 observations to insights at group level, and adequate ethical frameworks and review procedures. All right. I'll go to the next set of questions. We get a good sense of where the point of gravity is for these. Next three issues relate to the familiarity with and education of medical professionals on citizen science. Other issue is the diversity of citizen science practices of citizens, that if this diversity is known or not, and the possibility to unlock the potential of citizens, and access to health literature for citizens.
Interesting to see. Also, access to health literature. I just wonder how people would respond if we would ask this question 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's great developments in having access to literature and paywalls being torn down.
All right,
or maybe this is also a reflection of the different aspects of what is citizen science for health. If you are doing a project which is very much led by academic researchers, there might be less of an interest or need for participants to read the literature themselves. While if you have a participant-led project, it's much more central that participants have access to the health literature themselves, because they need to make the decisions on what to do.
Good point, Bastian.
Just a few seconds more, then we'll skip to the next set of three questions. Items, I mean. Access of citizens to their health records, the provision and development of tooling for citizens conducting their own research, meaning apps, e-health devices, adequate research procedures, etc., and access to lab facilities for citizen and patients.
And when thinking about tooling for citizens, I guess you can also think about methodology.
Yes, and that made it available in such a way that citizens understand it and can handle
You can
it.
use it, yes.
Appropriate in their specific context.
Yes, even statistical tools, for instance.
Yes, although the statistical
Online.
issues are, well, we covered that a bit in the first of this set of questions.
This is just
Talk
about the tooling.
Yeah, this is about the tooling. Equip the citizens with resources, material, so that they can conduct their own research.
I think we're pretty much there, Gaston.
You're right. Over to the next one. A balanced return on investment. Both researcher and citizens patients must be satisfied with participating in the project. So there must be a kind of reciprocity, which is acceptable for both parties. Publication and dissemination of research and results as a second issue, and communication and lobby channels vis-a-vis policymakers as a third one, as major conditions that should be developed in order for citizen science to prosper. All right, a few seconds more. And I'll go over to the next question. Meaning same question, but new 3 items. As a major condition, the development of a multi-stakeholder co-creative community of practice in which people support each other, either being a patient, researcher, policymaker, entrepreneur, whatever. Second, legislative frameworks regarding, for example, e-health tools, involvement of industry, or other issues, or other. And this is where, well, this is for your next question, where you can specify what are the other issues that you deem important.
Also, a few encouraging words. You're all doing great, and it's fantastic to see how you're involved in answering the questions. We tried it yesterday, and at this point of the workshop, we ourselves found ourselves a little bit tired and fatigued because of all the questions. So if you have that same feeling, hang in there. We're almost there, and we'll love how you're involved and contributing to this session.
Thank you, Martijn. Well, I'm truly happy to see that there's recognition for the need to come towards a community of practice, that we need to really start collaborating and doing things together to sort things out. So many things are a bit messy or undeveloped, unclear, whereas the potential is so big. We can only clarify the skies when we collaborate. Okay, a few seconds more, and then we go over to the last question in this domain, which refers to the other conditions that you deem important. Any other major condition that you think is important for in order for citizen science for health to prosper? This is an open-ended question, so fire away.
There's already a good comment that all comments should be left to the citizen society by Antonis.
All right, a few seconds more.
Also, an earlier comment to involve citizens. Researchers can already select tools during the planning of the research project that will make it possible for citizens to get involved. A comment by Karin. Karin. It's a good comment, thank you.
And a comment which we haven't seen yet is also the transparency of the projects, which I think is a good point as well.
Okay, a few seconds more, and then we move to the next question. And we're over now to our collaboration interests, European or otherwise. Simple question. Would you be interested in connecting more with other research, citizen science for health projects and project leaders in Europe?
And since we have a very international group of people who are participating, I think it could be worldwide instead for Europe, for the people outside of Europe.
That's why it was put into bracket European in the question in the framing of this section. You're correct, Sabine.
We can see one person has already definitely enough meetings on their agenda.
Yeah, it makes me curious who this person is, but it's anonymous, this voting, so...
And maybe most of us have also answered based on the social desirability, and this person is just very honest.
Exactly. All right. So at least from the audience, which that is at this moment present in this session, there's a great interest in connecting more. I'll move over to the next.
And the person who said no
declares
himself or herself saying that no, because I don't run a health project now. So that's
right.
The motivation.
Great. Thank you. I'll move over to the next one. Would you be interested in a special interest group on citizen science for health within ECSA?
Well, it looks like there's a sound basis for such a group.
All right. I'll move over to the next question. And on what issues would you like to see this collaboration to happen? Feel free in an open-ended question. All right.
I guess there's a variety of topics coming up, but also a more higher abstract level like ethics, methods, framework. Great.
Okay, we're moving over to the next question, also in view of the time. And if you've not been able to fill out this question, please comment in the chat. Or still have some remarks to make. Question C4. Simple question. Do you know of projects and people that should be definitely involved in this network? Just to get an idea of the amount of people that we are able to reach. And please fill out the Google Doc document, the link of which you can see here, with your projects and contact details.
Yeah, what is the definition of a lot or of some?
Yes, it's always difficult, but to get a sense of how far we can reach. Most people know some people.
That's good.
Let's start.
Also, with regard to the living document, the Google Doc, we will keep it online also after this session. So if you don't find the time now to share your project, please feel welcome to do it later today.
Correct. Okay, a few seconds more. And we'll move to the next question, which is a kind of evaluation of this session. Simple one. Do you want to stay updated on a follow-up on this session, either questionnaire and special interest group? The background of this question is also that we intend to improve the questionnaire as we've been going through with your input, and maybe send it around to the network in Europe and to get an even more in-depth view of what's happening and what are the interests across Europe. So if so, please send an email to the email address stated below with a simple message in the subject line, and you'll be connected. Then, if you were to characterize this session online, this online session, in one word, what word would that be?
Can people also use 2 words, Gaston?
Of course, but yes, of course.
I see promising and fun popping up and interactive, interesting. So that all sounds quite positive.
I indeed believe that there were some, it was insightful. All right.
I like the comment silent. There must be a lot of noise during this.
Yeah, it's
during this
quite
conference.
difficult to organize an interactive session online, but well, it's also amazing that at least some interaction is possible, even if we are at a distance.
We talked about it, about talking through the questions, but instead we chose to pause so that you as participants could read the questions, think and concentrate and not be distracted by our conversations. So.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for your feedback. I believe we're almost at the end of this questionnaire. Yes, we are. Don't leave us yet. We will finish this session with some short comments. Feel free to add in the chat also. I'm now stopping with sharing this screen and come up to the, let's see. How do I share this exit? Here we are again, I guess. So we have a few minutes left. Before we leave, before we have some comments, please be reminded tomorrow we will have a first debrief of the results of the session in the poster session at 5:45. Second, feel free to add onto the Google document, which is still open for the next couple of days. And please, my co-conveners and Bastian also, is there any reflection that you would like to make based on the interaction we've had over the course of the past 1.5 hours?
I would just say this was great. Thank you for all the participants. And share one comment. Somebody says, partnership, I suggest you're getting more out of this session online than we would have achieved face-to-face. I second that.
I would like to thank everybody who participated. What struck me was that the people participating have a very warm heart for the citizens that are part of the citizen science community. And they really advocate community engagement, true engagement, being in contact with the people that actually do the citizen science. So I would say based on this, that this group can really have potential to become the most exciting group within ECSA over the coming years.
Yeah, I also like to thank everybody for their input. I saw some familiar names already in the chat, but of course we cannot see you as an audience. So yeah, maybe the interaction is better than face-to-face, but I really hope to see you once somewhere. And I think there is a growing group of people who are really dedicated to this science for health subject. And there's still a lot to do on all different levels. And I think we touched upon some of the subjects already today, but I hope that, that we will meet soon in the future, either live or online again.
I can just second that. And thanks also, Gaston, and everyone else of you, of course, for preparing the survey, which I think was really informative. And I think the main takeaway for me is that we can see how really diverse on these just 2 axes even, we see how diverse citizen science for health can be. And I think there are lots of implications when it comes to, for example, the ethics questions that came up and now what is important, because many different types of projects might have very different requirements. And I think there's lots of us to discuss in the future about this when we hopefully see each other again.
Thanks, Bastian. Well, I second your comment and the comments of my co-conveners. I'm so pleased with our interaction over the past 1.5 hours, and to see especially the dedication and the willingness to make this work, which I think is a major driving force to make it work indeed. if there's colleagues, please check the chat. Is there any issue that we should want to address, given the fact that we have 2 minutes more? Do you think is important?
No.
And maybe we have the
No more
session
comments.
of Gaston tomorrow, but at 6 o'clock there's another session on citizen science for health. So please join that one as well if you're interested.
Definitely. There's a few health papers tomorrow in the afternoon. But I guess you are all aware of that. And if there's any desire to communicate with each other in a different way than through the formalized interaction spaces, we might be willing to organize a Zoom session or something like that. But if so, please connect, and we will use the emails that you've sent to us to see if this is appropriate to do. Chris Bevelander, which poster session tomorrow? Question.
I think mine is 17, if I'm correct. Health 7 or the 17 poster session, but it starts at 6 o'clock, and it's one that is dedicated only to citizen science for health. That whole session.
Well, I suggest we call this session to an end. Thanks a lot for participating. Enjoy the conference for the next couple of days, and enjoy the social sessions in between of the presentations too. Look forward to meeting you in person once, somewhere. Okay, bye-bye.